Hello everyone, welcome to the Adkup Show. Today we are diving deep into Nigeria's economic landscape. Actually, my Nigerian friend had asked me this question about why there is so much income inequality and socio-political instability in Nigeria and how to solve it. This video is all about that. So without wasting time, let's get started. So first, let's start with a quick snapshot of Nigeria in 2025. Nigeria is the most populous country in African continent with over 220 million people living there. Nigeria used to be the largest economy in Africa, but now it is at number 4 or probably 5, depending on how you calculate it. In 2014, its GDP was around $570 billion, but by 2023, it came down to $360 billion. This shows that the growth and progress in Nigeria is shrinking every year. But it's not just that. Nigeria is also one of the most unequal countries in Africa and in the world. The GDP growth for the year 2025 is projected at around 3.5%, a slight upstick from last year, thanks to some key projects like the completion of the AKK gas pipeline and start of operations of Dangote refinery. But here's the kicker. Inflation is still high at about 34.52%, largely because of recent fuel subsidy removal and foreign exchange market liberalization. This has led to Naira seeing some wild swings, with projections suggesting it might hover between 1,370 and 2,000 to the dollar this year. Naira is weak and devalued currency after the government liberalized it. So what I'm trying to convey is that Nigeria is not growing despite massive oil and gas exports. There is no infrastructure growth and there is no increase in standards of living. There are several reasons behind this which you will understand as we move forward in this video. Now, the service sector, which accounts for 45% of Nigeria's economy, is where most of the growth is coming from. But it's not creating jobs at the pace needed. Well, the service sector never creates any jobs, to be honest. The oil sector, despite its potential, struggles with production issues, while agriculture, although vital, faces numerous challenges like insecurity and climate change. This is where the North and South division comes into play. South is more developed, while North is pretty much chaotic and unstable. Here we can see that there is a big difference between North and South. North follows Islam and South follows Christianity. This itself creates many socio-political and religious problems. Government doesn't know how to solve this problem, and to be honest, there is no solution to this cultural and religious diversity, which has been net loss for Nigeria. This disparity between northern and southern Nigeria is multifaceted, involving historical, geographical, political, and socio-economic elements. It means these issues are legacy issues. The South with its coastal areas got more exposure to Western education and was integrated into global trade early on, particularly with palm oil trade. Meanwhile, North's indirect rule system preserved traditional governance but delayed the integration into a modern economy. It's a clear case of non-modernized society which is trying to gain its ground in the 21st century. The South had more access not just to Western education, but also to Western institutions, especially the British institutions, which led to higher literacy rates and better preparation for post-colonial economic activities. The North relied more on traditional Islamic education, which did not initially prepare its population for sane economic opportunities. Due to lack of education and infrastructure, North Nigeria stayed unstable, which made the situation trickier for the investors. Well, investors pretty much ignored North Nigeria. Post-independence, this set the stage for North-South dynamics, where political powers often resided in the North due to higher population, but economic development was more pronounced in the South. Think about it like the South had this head start in education and commerce, which has had long-lasting effects. Now, let's talk about resources because that's where the story gets interesting. The South, especially the Niger Delta, fits on Nigeria's oil wealth. This region pumps out the black gold that's the nation's economic lifeblood, leading to cities like Lagos and Port Harcourt becoming hubs of trade, industry, and commerce. However, this hasn't been without its problems. Environmental degradation and resource control disputes have been major issues. Contrast this with the North, which, while not having oil, but has extensive agricultural land. They grew staples like millet and sorghum, and they are the cattle capital of Nigeria. But here's the catch. The potential isn't fully tapped because of issues like banditry and terrorism, which has turned fertile fields into battlegrounds and traditional farming methods that haven't evolved much. This means that North Nigeria has great potential, but due to socio-economic reasons, it doesn't grow and always stays in chaos. To be honest, North Nigeria is pretty much backward in its thoughts and government can't be blamed 100%. Society doesn't want to modernize and government doesn't have enough capacity and capability to enforce the modernization. By the way, despite the South generating more revenues through oil, the revenue allocation formula often favors North due to population size and other criteria. However, this has not translated into development due to mismanagement or focus. Now, economic indicators paint a strong picture. In the South, you have got more universities, higher literacy rates, and better health outcomes. These are building blocks of human capital, which in turn drives economic activity. For instance, Lagos alone has a GDP bigger than many African countries, driven by finance, telecom, and trade. In the north, however, you see higher poverty rates. States like Sokoto, Taraba, and Jigawa have poverty rates above national average. Education and health services lag, so the Human Development Index isn't as robust. And while there is revenue sharing from oil, the disparity in how it's used or misused in the north has meant less development there. So corruption is a big problem in north. Overall, it's a very rigid status quo. Politics plays a huge role. The rotation of power between the regions have been an attempt to balance ethnic tensions, but it hasn't always led to equitable development. Corruption is a natural issue, but in the north, it's particularly damaging because it diverts funds from where they are needed, like infrastructure or education, into the pockets of a few. Governance has been somewhat ineffective in translating political control into economic prosperity for the north. Policies aimed in bridging a gap like agriculture initiatives often fall flat due to poor implementation or because they are overshadowed by security issues. This kind of politics proves that the government has to spend its big chunk of resources on just managing the socio-political stability, and many times government just ignores all bad happenings. This is done in order to maintain the stability. Culturally, there is sometimes resistance to change in the north, where traditional values might clash with modern economic practices. Socially, the population growth is higher in the north, which combined with lower economic productivity means more mouths to feed with less to go around. This put South under pressure as they have to share their resources with North. Security is another big one, from Boko Haram in the northeast to banditry in the northwest. These issues disrupt farming, scare off investors, and displace people. It's hard to build an economy when you are constantly looking over your shoulder for insurgents or bandits. By the way, many times these groups have claimed that they are fighting for their rights, as according to them, they don't get fair share and chance in country's economy and politics. They may be right or may be wrong, but at the end, they are destabilizing forces which are a big hurdle in Nigeria's growth. Sometimes foreign powers use these groups against the Nigerian government for geopolitical reasons. This scenario leads to chaos and suffering among common people who just are trying to live a normal life. So the big question is, what does the future holds for Nigeria? With massive oil and gas deposits and exposure to international trade, South is having its natural growth and will probably continue to have for the next 2 to 3 decades. South also has massive coastlines, which gives them more access to trade routes. However, when it comes to North, things are not like that. In fact, things are bad and are getting even more bad every year. But despite all this, the potential for North is immense if it can address few issues like education. North needs to invest heavily in education, focusing on technical and vocational training to match the job market's need. Technically, Nigeria doesn't manufacture anything. So in this case, the government can try to provide some industrial skills to people in the North and set up factories where South provide them with resources. However, it's very difficult and requires complete state mobilization. Better roads, electricity, and irrigation can transform agriculture from subsistence to commercial, making it competitive. Peace is the foundation of prosperity. Stabilizing the North would open up vast opportunities. However, achieving this will require socio-political and religious modernization. Just like any third world country, Nigeria is also an enforcement deficit country. This means the government frames the laws, policies, and allocates resources, but when it comes to enforcing and implementing those laws and resources, government fails as there is too much of red tape and corruption in the system. Nigeria needs policies that ensures equitable resource distribution and effective implementation. This will require a certain amount of authoritarianism. Decentralization is also required, but only in those areas which are doing good. Giving more powers to prosperous states might help them manage their resources better. But when it comes to infrastructure and education, government have to be more aggressive and demand accountability from local authorities. More than 85% of Nigeria's revenues come from export of oil and gas. The country doesn't export anything except that. So it becomes very important for government to make sure the wealth and revenues are managed well, ensuring that it benefits all Nigerians and not just the elites. In conclusion, the North-South divide isn't just about geography. It's about history, policy, resource management, and human development. Nigeria's journey to bridge this gap will require concrete efforts from all sections of society, from grassroots level movements to national policy changes. Can Nigeria achieve this? Well, if I have to give my honest views, then the answer is no. Nigeria won't be able to solve these problems. However, we might see few regions in Nigeria having a better development, but that's not enough. World is getting deglobalized and countries are moving towards non-renewable source of energy. Demand for oil and gas will naturally decrease in the future. Nigeria will probably collapse as country has too many problems and solutions are very difficult to find and implement. If you found this analysis insightful, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content on African economics and politics, and also about other parts of the world. Drop your thoughts in comments below. What do you think more can be done to develop Africa's most populous country? Thanks for watching, and remember, understanding our past and present is key to shaping a better future. Catch you in the next video. Peace out.